Have you ever felt your heart physically ache after a breakup? That crushing sensation in your chest when someone rejects you? What if I told you that your brain literally cannot tell the difference between a broken bone and a broken heart? This isn't poetic exaggeration. For centuries, we've dismissed emotional pain as somehow less real than physical pain, as if heartbreak was just metaphorical suffering. But groundbreaking research has shattered this assumption completely. Scientists have discovered that when you experience social rejection, your brain lights up in exactly the same regions that activate when you burn your hand on a hot stove or stub your toe. The pain of loneliness, the sting of exclusion, the agony of heartbreak. These aren't just feelings. They're neurologically indistinguishable from physical injury. This revolutionary discovery began in the early 2000s at UCLA, where Dr. Naomi Eisenberger designed an ingenious experiment. She created a deceptively simple computer game called Cyberball, essentially virtual catch with a ball. Participants lay inside an fMRI scanner, believing they were playing this game with two other people over the internet. They watched a simple animation of hands tossing a ball back and forth. At first, everyone played together normally, but then suddenly, the other two players stopped throwing the ball to the participant. They were deliberately excluded, left out of the game entirely. Now, this might sound trivial. It's just a computer game with people you've never met and will never meet. But something remarkable happened in the brain. The exclusion, despite being completely artificial and meaningless, activated specific neural regions with stunning consistency. The brain scans revealed intense activity in two particular areas: the anterior cingulate cortex, abbreviated as ACC, and the anterior insula. And here's where it gets fascinating. These exact same regions form what neuroscientists call the pain matrix, the network that processes the emotional suffering component of physical pain. You see, pain isn't as simple as we might think. When you injure yourself, your brain processes this experience through two distinct pathways. The first is the sensory discriminative component. This system, primarily handled by the somatosensory cortex, tells you where the pain is located, how intense it is, whether it's sharp or dull, burning or aching. It's the informational aspect of pain. But there's a second dimension, equally important, the affective emotional component. This is the suffering, the unpleasantness, the "this feels terrible and I want it to stop" quality of pain. And this emotional dimension is processed by the ACC and the insula, the very same structures activated during social rejection. Think about it this way. You can have the sensory information about tissue damage without the emotional suffering. There are rare medical conditions where people can detect painful stimuli but don't find them distressing. They'll say, "Yes, I feel the sensation, but it doesn't bother me." Conversely, you can have the emotional suffering without physical injury, which is exactly what happens during social pain. Emotional pain bypasses the sensory pathway entirely and activates the suffering circuit directly. But the evidence gets even more compelling. Researchers conducted a study using acetaminophen, which you probably know as paracetamol or Tylenol, a common over-the-counter pain reliever. One group of participants took acetaminophen daily for 3 weeks, while a control group took a placebo. Both groups completed daily measures of social pain, reporting feelings of hurt and rejection. The results were stunning. The group taking acetaminophen reported significantly reduced hurt feelings compared to the placebo group. A drug designed for headaches and muscle pain was reducing emotional pain from social experiences. The researchers then brought participants into the lab for the Cyberball Exclusion Experiment while scanning their brains. Those who had been taking acetaminophen showed reduced activation in the ACC and insula during social rejection compared to the placebo group. A chemical painkiller was literally dampening the neural response to being left out. This wasn't just subjective reporting. The brain activity itself was objectively different. The neurochemical overlap between physical and emotional pain was undeniable. Why would evolution design our brains this way? Why would social pain hijack the physical pain system? The answer lies in our evolutionary history as an intensely social species. For hundreds of thousands of years, human survival depended absolutely on group membership. Being excluded from your tribe wasn't just emotionally difficult, it was a potential death sentence. Without the protection, resources, and cooperation of the group, an isolated individual faced starvation, predation, and exposure. Natural selection favored individuals who experienced social disconnection as genuinely, urgently, painful. Those who felt terrible when excluded were motivated to repair relationships, maintain social bonds, and avoid behaviors that led to rejection. This survival advantage was so powerful that evolution essentially recycled the existing pain system, which had already proven effective at motivating avoidance of physical threats, to also signal social threats. The pain system became dual-purpose, protecting us from both physical and social dangers. This shared neurobiology extends beyond brain regions to include neurochemical systems as well. Both physical and social pain involve the release of endogenous opioids, the brain's natural painkillers. When you experience comfort and social support, your brain releases these opioid compounds, which actually reduce your perception of pain. This isn't just psychological comfort making you feel better emotionally. It's literal, measurable pain reduction at the neurological level. Studies have demonstrated this with remarkable clarity. In one experiment, women received painful heat stimulation to their arms while undergoing brain scanning. In some trials, they held their romantic partner's hand. In others, they held a stranger's hand or no hand at all. The results showed that holding a loved one's hand significantly reduced activation in the pain matrix compared to holding a stranger's hand. The physical presence and touch of someone we're bonded with literally dampens our brain's pain response. Even more surprisingly, just looking at photographs of loved ones has measurable analgesic effects. Participants who viewed pictures of their romantic partners while receiving painful stimulation showed reduced pain-related brain activity compared to viewing pictures of strangers. The visual representation of social connection alone was enough to activate the endogenous opioid system and reduce pain processing. This explains neurologically why we seek comfort from others when we're hurting and why isolation amplifies suffering. The relationship between physical and social pain sensitivity appears to be bidirectional and individual. Research has found that people who are more sensitive to physical pain also tend to report greater distress from social rejection and vice versa. If you have a low pain threshold for stubbing your toe, you're statistically more likely to be deeply hurt by social exclusion. This suggests a shared sensitivity, a common neural substrate that varies from person to person, affecting both domains simultaneously. Some researchers, particularly psychologist Jeffrey McDonald, have proposed an even more provocative theory called the social pain theory. This hypothesis suggests that pain systems may have evolved primarily to process social disconnection, and only later were adapted to also signal physical injury. This inverts our traditional understanding completely. According to this view, social pain isn't borrowing the physical pain system. Physical pain is borrowing the social pain system. While this theory remains controversial and debated, it's supported by some intriguing observations. Social species show more complex pain behaviors than solitary species. The emotional component of pain appears more developed in animals with sophisticated social structures. And developmentally, human infants show distress responses to separation before they show complex responses to physical pain. Whether social or physical pain came first evolutionarily, the profound overlap is undeniable. Clinical evidence further validates this connection. Individuals with congenital insensitivity to pain, rare genetic conditions where people cannot feel physical pain, often show atypical processing of emotional and social pain as well. Their difficulties aren't limited to the physical domain. They frequently struggle with normal social-emotional development, suggesting that the same underlying neural machinery supports both experiences. Conversely, chronic emotional trauma can sensitize the pain system in lasting ways. People who experience prolonged social stress, childhood neglect, or repeated rejection show altered pain processing. They become more vulnerable to chronic pain conditions like fibromyalgia, irritable bowel syndrome, and tension headaches. The chronic activation of the social pain system appears to create neurological changes that increase overall pain sensitivity. This illustrates the profound mind-body connections that neuroscience is only beginning to fully understand. There are important clinical and therapeutic implications emerging from this research. First, understanding that emotional pain is neurologically real validates the experiences of people suffering from heartbreak, loneliness, grief, and rejection. These aren't signs of weakness or oversensitivity. They're legitimate neurological experiences of suffering, as real as any physical injury. This knowledge can reduce the stigma surrounding mental health and emotional struggles. Second, if physical and emotional pain share neural mechanisms, then interventions effective for one type might help the other. Social support and strong relationships don't just make us feel better emotionally. They provide measurable protection against physical pain and illness. Mindfulness practices, cognitive behavioral therapy, and other psychological interventions developed for emotional distress show promise for chronic pain management. Similarly, Understanding pain neuroscience and developing pain coping skills might help people navigate social and emotional challenges. Third, this research highlights the critical importance of social connection for overall health. Loneliness and social isolation aren't just unpleasant emotional states. They're activating pain and stress systems in ways that have real consequences for physical health. Chronic loneliness is associated with increased inflammation, cardiovascular disease, weakened immune function, and earlier mortality. The pain of disconnection is your brain's urgent signal that a fundamental need is unmet. So the next time someone tells you to just get over heartbreak or that rejection shouldn't hurt so much, you can explain that their brain is literally experiencing a pain response as real as any physical injury. The ache in your chest when someone leaves, the hollow feeling of exclusion, the sharp sting of rejection, these sensations have neural substance. Your suffering is valid, measurable, and deeply rooted in the architecture of your social brain. We are wired for connection. Our brains have devoted precious neural real estate, the same circuitry that protects us from physical harm, to ensure we maintain the social bonds essential for survival. In recognizing that social pain and physical pain are neurologically intertwined, we validate the profound importance of relationships, belonging, and community to human well-being. We are not designed to suffer alone, and our pain systems ensure we never forget that fundamental truth.